Power up your career. Join us in Saint Kitts from October 28 to November 1 for the Electric Vehicle Repair and Maintenance Training and Certification. Hosted at the Center for Research, Innovation and Workforce Training, this hands-on course equips you with the skills to service and repair electric vehicles. Learn from industry experts, get certified, and connect with professionals from across the Caribbean. Whether you're a mechanic or a first responder, don't miss this chance to stay ahead in the automotive industry. Register at greensolutionsskn.com. Green Solutions International, locally rooted, globally connected.
International SKN Incorporated to launch the Caribbean Center of Excellence in Research, Innovation and Workforce project on Tuesday. President of the CFBC, Andrew Abraham, spoke of the impact of the center for the college and national.
To begin our second session, and it is one that is very close to my heart. And we have been looking in the diaspora, the Regional Integration and Diaspora Unit, that is, on ways that we can interact between Saint Kitts and Nevis and our diaspora on building wealth and investment. One of the things that our diaspora groups continue to engage in is having their dinners and their dances and their different events to raise funds, to send gifts and other goods home to Saint Kitts and Nevis. However, the day will soon come when we will have to look more towards how do we invest to get better returns on our work, that in 20, 30 years, we are reaping greater dividends, not only as a country, and not only here in Saint Kitts and Nevis, but through our diaspora and for individuals as well. And so we are looking at different ways, and one of the first things we want to discuss is entrepreneurship. How do we make better entrepreneurs of our people here in Saint Kitts and Nevis? And I have the honor of introducing Miss Davinia Tomlinson, who is herself an entrepreneur, who has lived in the United Kingdom and is now based here in Saint Kitts and Nevis as a vibrant entrepreneur. And so I would want for her to be able to lead that discussion with us. I also want us to look at the dollars we send home, the remittances. I have had the opportunity to look at data coming out of the central bank. And there were years that up to $16 million had been sent home in remittances. Yes, they had helped our families pay their bills, feed and take care of the young ones. But the question is, how much more can we do with $16 million per annum that can do much for greater development of Saint Kitts and Nevis in terms of investment? And so what more can we do, and how well can we have that discussion? And so Mr. Trevor Blake is going to be able to have that discussion with us on remittances. And I've been talking about investment in both spheres. And there is no one better to speak on investment than the investment emissary in the Prime Minister's office. And so I welcome His Excellency Mr. Calvin St. Juste, who is the ambassador to the Prime Minister's office on matters of investment. And finally, business, investment, they are all based on ideas. And so what becomes of our intellectual property rights when we get new ideas? Can we in Saint Kitts and Nevis develop ideas that become the new buzzword in the global north? And so how can we protect ourselves and our ideas, our goods, as we seek to develop and expand and have that interchange between the home base and the diaspora? And so there's much for us to discuss. And I will say no more, but to turn the mic over to the host for this session, Ms. Davinia Tomlinson. So she will serve both as host and presenter. So let us put our hands together and welcome her.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here. It's lovely to see you all. So, as Mr. Vaughan has just outlined, I will be leading this afternoon's conversation, and we've got a lot of ground to cover. I recognise that we've got a number of topics, and it'd be really good for us to hear from the audience as well, so we can capture your feedback and see how we can integrate that into new ideas, new policies, new procedures, and ultimately a new rich vein, hopefully, a new seam of investment opportunities into the Federation from the diaspora. So, first of all, I'd like to welcome my esteemed panel. So, ladies first. So, I'd like to welcome Mrs. Jihan Williams-Knight. Jihan is an attorney, author, and social advocate from Saint Kitts and Nevis. She holds certifications from the University of the West Indies, Norman Manley Law School, and Queen Mary University of London, including a master's degree in intellectual property law, with specializations in media regulation, intellectual property in the creative industries, and intellectual property in international trade. So all topics that we will hopefully get to touch on here this afternoon. So Mrs. Williams-Knight, thank you for being here. I know that she has a really deep interest and love for the creative economy as well, and there are a number of creative entrepreneurs both here and abroad. So looking at ways that we can partner as a diaspora community with local entrepreneurs through joint venture, through creating businesses, and through ultimately harnessing and unlocking our own creative potential and monetizing that will be something that Jihan will be touching on here this afternoon. Next, Mr. Trevor Blake, fellow Rotarian. Trevor is the Managing Director of the Eastern Caribbean Securities Exchange, ECSE, and its subsidiary, the Eastern Caribbean Central Securities Depository. He has been the Chief Executive Officer of the group since January 2005 and has had a deep and integral involvement with the group since inception. Prior to joining the ECSE, Mr. Blake held the position of Director of the Financial and Enterprise Development Department of the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, where he has held direct responsibility for the bank's money and capital markets development. Mr. Blake is the current President of the Saint Kitts and Nevis Chamber of Industry and Commerce. He's an active Rotarian as past President of the Rotary Club of Saint Kitts and past District Governor. And he has an MBA from the University of Nottingham. Anybody here from Nottingham? No. Anyone here from the UK? Okay. Last but not least, Calvin St. Juste. Mr. St. Juste is the new chair of the Citizenship by Investment Unit here in Saint Kitts and Nevis, as well as the Special Envoy and Ambassador for Investment and Development. He has a career spanning 25 years across several industries, including financial services, telecoms, and telemedicine. He has advised and worked with high net worth and ultra high net worth clients in senior executive roles at major firms such as Chief Operating Officer at Morgan Stanley in their wealth management financial wellness business, Vice President at JP Morgan in their investment and private banking department, for which he built out teams responsible for servicing high net worth international clients with a personal net worth in excess of $100 million US, and also the global audit head of technology, at leading asset management firm T. Rowe Price. And prior to leaving St. Kitts, Mr. St. Juste's career here also included time at the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank. So before we get to Calvin, I'll share a bit about myself. So as Mr. Vaughan outlined, you can tell from my accent, I'm obviously a Brit as well, but I've lived in St. Kitts for the last 4 years. My background is Kittitian and Jamaican. My family are from the village. Anybody from the village? Any roots or connection to the village? We're the Dasents. So I've got a big family that's from the village, and really I moved back to St. Kitts because I wanted to raise my daughters in an environment where they could see Black excellence everywhere and for that to be normalised and for them to really feel connected to and close to their cultural heritage. And it's been a real gift and a real privilege for us to be here and for me to raise my daughters here. My background is in the investment management industry, asset management specifically, so I started my career at Fidelity Investments. I've worked across both mainstream investments and asset classes, from the stock market through to fixed income, as well as smaller private wealth management clients, ultra-high net worths in the Middle East, Africa, Asia. I'm an author, so I'm a very big advocate of financial literacy, specifically for children, specifically for the next generation, and investing in the economic empowerment of women. We all know, our heritage as Caribbean people and the contribution that our strong matriarchs make to our financial well-being and all other aspects of our wellness. So I'm very invested in that. And so I'm really looking forward to leading the conversation around what we can do as a diaspora community to invest not just our time, our expertise, our knowledge, and of course our money, really, our capital, into this federation that we love so much. So Calvin, my first question is for you. And I think of any of us on the panel, including myself, you have a very unique story to share with us as a diasporan, as somebody that was born and raised in Saint Kitts, established a career in Saint Kitts, and then left, and now you've returned. Can you share with us a bit about that story?
Thank you, Davinia. It's quite interesting when we talk about a story. As you shared, I am extremely honored to be around the esteemed panelists here, because what I would tell you even more so is I've given a number of presentations, and this is probably near and dear to my heart, because it is individuals who are part of the fiber of Saint Kitts and Nevis. What I would share from a story perspective, as many of us from the diaspora, the journey always begins from an education part. I see former colleagues, former classmates, the village folks, and the key thing is we've always been told to move to the next level. It starts with the education aspect, and I'm sure many of us may have left. For really the key thing is getting a greater opportunity wherever that part in the world. I think for me, I left with the understanding that the goal is to better oneself, and regardless of the size of our federation, you always number one. And this is something I would tell individuals, because there's always been a situation of me being the only one. And so I started off with the journey in terms of pursuing education, got an opportunity to work in JP Morgan under their leadership development program. And I think it was a number of the foundational aspects that I learned here. And I always give attribute to my first job as a 12-year-old in TDC when I got the first scholarship. And that was the foundation of a number of my trajectory. And I think the key thing I've learned in my journey, moving from St. Kitts, pursuing a career in investment, I always want to leave with that number one. So JP Morgan was my initial engagement, and as you shared, it was an avenue of seeing things very different. We talk about wealth and asset the individual owns was at that I saw totally different. But the key thing I would say, there are three key principles of my journey. The first one is don't limit yourself. I've always been either number one, and someone that just looks like me is not an anomaly in some of the audience, whether it's being the CEO of Morgan Stanley, the first their fraud and cybersecurity and wealth management, whether it's being the only one who have led the Comcast Embassy, the largest social media customer advocacy division, or even when I entered into telemedicine. Again, the context of being the only one that looks like me. But what was key is there was always a community that I would say helped with the journey, helped with the foundation. The second thing I would say in terms of having that level of resiliency is don't always ensure that you put yourself out there. I think one of the things I left Saint Kitts with is there's a common saying, don't show yourself. In America or the global, you have to show yourself. You have to be the one speaking up. You have to actually, don't wait for someone to give you a seat. You actually grab the seat and you sit on the seat. There's a level of our cultural smile that perhaps may appear as weakness. But investment banking, you have to be really aggressive. And then the last thing I would say is don't lose your connection to who you are. Our culture is a very warm and welcoming one, and I think that has helped my trajectory, where it's easy to smile, it's easy to welcome individual, but it's the pursuit of excellence. It's the pursuit of always striving to be number one, regardless of the detractors that you may face. And I encourage the diaspora to continue to demonstrate that Saint Kitts will always be number one in everything we do.
I love that. I feel like that deserves a round of applause. Saint Kitts will always be number one in everything that we do. I really like that. Calvin, you touched on something that is a subject that is particularly close to my heart, which is financial literacy for the next generation, because I think one of the things that I've identified in my work, and having written a book on this subject specifically for young girls, is that we can assume knowledge when it comes to financial literacy. So in this conversation around wealth creation and investment, you need a solid foundation before you can get to the stage of building. You need to be a novice before you can be a master at something. And I think irrespective of ethnicity or background, there is assumed knowledge around our level of financial literacy and financial education. And I'm biased when I say this, but I think it's a good bias in that the government just announced in Saint Kitts and Nevis the launch of the Aspire programme, which is all about equipping the next generation of Kittitians and Nevisians with not just the financial means, so all 5 to 18-year-old citizens will receive $1,000 and investment into shares in local companies so that people here, irrespective of their backgrounds, can have a stake in some of the companies that their parents and themselves are patrons or customers of. But also financial literacy taught across schools. Even if you are not a citizen, if you were at a school in Saint Kitts and Nevis, you will get access to that financial education. How important do you think it is that we establish those financial foundations early so that we can help to mitigate some of the poverty that exists here, some of the, you talked about the mindset, and there's a whole body of research around the psychology of money, which informs the things that we do and how we can self-sabotage when it comes to finances in the diaspora, at home and elsewhere. Why is it important that we establish those foundations, and how can financial literacy help with that?
Absolutely. I'll go a little further than financial literacy. I'll say financial wellness. I think we have to ensure, when we think about the concept of finance, especially here, it has to be centered around wellness. And when you think about financial wellness, it's really having that level of confidence and stability to deliver in all aspects of your life. We think about wellness when we think about a health perspective, but there's also an element of wellness from a finance. The number one stress that we saw when we did a number of surveys is on money. The number one area where we see divorces and relationship challenges is around finance and money. And so it is important that we understand the foundation starts with wellness. And wellness in terms of, first, the literacy aspect, budget and savings. It's interesting, I don't recall ever having that conversation here around savings and budgeting, and until I perhaps became an adult. I think in in our culture, there's an element that we may fear to talk about money. We cannot fear money. Money is critical. I remember when I first did a discussion, research, I talked about the spirit of money. And I remember my colleagues laugh. I said, the spirit of money says, money tends to follow money. And money will always go in an area where it feels comfortable, it feels nurtured, and it feels an element of growth. And it starts with, in my scenario where, when I worked at actually Royal Bank of Canada, the consumer who had that $100 in their savings account to an individual in the private bank world who had $100 million. What I've learned, it's human connection of knowing how to preserve that concept, knowing the basic aspect of understanding the knowledge base of what you have. So literacy starts with the basic foundation. How much income do I currently have? And we're fearful. We know we get money in, but gladly we know we get expenses. So you first have to understand how much actual income do I have? And then also you have to then move to the second level of what am I spending on? So there's an element of budget, and we're fearful of budget. I don't know why, but budget is basically planning for the future. You go down to Spratnet, you go over the strip, you're going to spend that money. It only takes maybe 30 minutes to plan. All right, well, if I go to Spratnet, I'm going over the strip, I'll probably spend $100. That's fine. I'll give you an interesting fact on the importance of savings. The important aspect around, let's say you had $5,000 and you're saving that annually, and it was to get a compound interest of 7%. If you're 25 and by the time you're 65, that's about $1.2 million. It sounds long distance. I remember when I left Saint Kitts in my 20s, and if you start at that time frame, that's really where you, that's millions. And it sounds difficult. Divide the 5,000, by the 4 weeks and so forth. That's simple. Dinners, $200-300 we spend. But if we keep the foundation aspect of knowing how much we're spending, knowing how much money is going out, it doesn't have to be belabored. Just those are the basic foundation. Save $10 from, it starts with $10. It starts with $20. As your income increases, that's what I would encourage you. And then you move on to I call the high school level, investing. You have to be able to invest. Those in the US, you obviously have access to 401ks, low index mutual fund, ETFs. We also have individuals in London and Canada. You have access to them. And here in Saint Kitts and Nevis, you savings account. We don't now always have to, as we said all the time, put the money under the mattress. It's important that you start with those basic foundation. But as you said, literacy is first getting the education. Don't fear the education of understanding savings. Don't fear the education about budgeting. And then expand into the understanding of what are the avenues, what are the vehicles we have here to invest in.
Yeah, that's a brilliant segue for me to bring Trevor into the conversation, because Trevor and I have had a number of conversations about the ECSE, and I think as somebody that operates as I feel sometimes in quite a privileged position in which I act as a kind of gateway or conduit to what's happening at home on the ground, and then also in St. Kitts, being able to be a mouthpiece for some of the opportunities that exist here that I think prior to me moving here I wouldn't otherwise have known existed. How can people get access to investment opportunities here in the Federation? And I think, we've talked before, Trevor and I have been on a show together before. So when we were on that show, we talked about, our predisposition as a people culturally or our recourse to real estate investment, land and property, which is what I think traditionally we would have viewed as the main preserve of wealth in the Federation. And I think it still is, absolutely. But one of the main principles of investing, as we all know, is around diversification, spreading our risk and not holding all of our eggs in one basket. So for people in the diaspora that are thinking, well, actually, real terms, there is only a finite amount of land that exists. And if I don't have several $1,000s, tens of thousands to invest or buy a piece of land, how else can I get access to investment opportunities? So when I moved here and discovered the ECSE, I was really excited about it. Can you share with the audience what the ECSE does and how they might be able to participate?
Hello?
Is it on?
Thank you, Davinia. Thank you for that question. Something back in 2001, when we exchange and the markets that exchange hosts. Previous to that, there was very limited availability for persons to make investments in financial assets. And what we sought to do then was to create within the currency union a single seamless securities market that would enable persons from right across the currency union and from even further abroad to be able to invest securely and safely in financial assets. When we created the ECSE back then, we recognized the gaps that existed in the financial system. We had a largely bank-centric financial system where all that was available to persons, the ordinary man, was bank accounts, savings accounts. And all of us know that you cannot save yourself rich. Mm-hmm. Yeah? So to create wealth, you must do more than just save. You must invest. So savings is important because that's the starting block. Yeah? You first have to save unless you get some windfall. You win the lotto, and we don't do that. Or if you get some inheritance, to get monies to invest, you have to save. And as Calvin was saying, you have to budget. So as you earn your income, you have to start to put aside. And as one saying goes, pay yourself first. So you put aside, and the rule of thumb is 1/10 of your earnings you put aside in savings. So you build up a nest egg for the rainy day, and then you take it from there. Once you've had like maybe about 6 months income in savings, that could sort of protect you if you lose a job, if something happens. COVID happened a few years ago. You start to think then, what next? How do I use what I have to create wealth? They start to look for investments. And typically we, as you mentioned as well, Davinia, most of us look to real estate, but that's not the only game in the town. In town, we have now recognized, well-regulated securities exchange in the ECSE that enables persons to invest and to create wealth for themselves. On our market on the ECSE, we established in 2001, as I said, and it's a fully electronic market. The market is completely dematerialized. There's no physical instruments in the market, so everything is in electronic form. And we host two markets, the Eastern Caribbean Securities Market and the Regional Government Securities Market. On the Regional Government Securities Market, governments raise financing to fund their operations, and every single, in fact, to date, we've had like 69 auctions of government securities, where governments raise something like $830 billion just in this calendar year to date. Since we launched the market, in fact, governments have raised over $20 billion to enable them to carry out the operations. We have 14 companies listed, 5 here in Saint Kitts and Nevis. We have the Bank of Nevis, we have the Saint Kitts and Nevis Anguilla National Bank, we have TDC, SL Horsfoods, and Cable and Wire Saint Kitts and Nevis Limited. And that gives us a range of options for investing. We have other companies from the other parts of the currency union. So we have, again, some geographic diversification that is available. We have diversification across sectors. We have the financial sector, we have utilities, we have real estate, we have energy sector, and diversified companies. So there's a range of sectors that one has to invest in and to provide diversification. Now, how do you get involved? We have a network of broker-dealers across the currency union, and there are 2 here in St. Kitts and Nevis. We have the Saint Kitts and Nevis Angola National Bank, its main office here in Bastia, and a branch in Charlestown. And of course, we have the Bank of Nevis, which is headquartered in Nevis, but now has branches here in St. Kitts as well. So they have on their staff persons who are trained and licensed to do securities business. So you could go to one of those two broker-dealers, talk to their securities professionals in there, their principals and representatives, who would be able to guide you as to how you could go about getting involved in the market, how they could give you advice on what is there to invest in, and how you could go about investing in these securities. Of course, our website, the www.ecseonline.com. Again, there's a wealth of information that gives you a calendar of issues, auctions that we have upcoming, securities that are available for trading, and there's tremendous lot of information there. Every day we put out trading reports, and that's on our website. That's also provided to the media. We are also in social media, on Instagram and LinkedIn, and in X or Twitter and things like that. So there's quite a bit of information out there about what is available in our market and how one could get involved in investing.
Thank you, Trevor. And so I think we should repeat those websites at the end for anybody that is interested, because I think, like me, there are probably lots of people that didn't even know that ECSE existed, and I think it's just a brilliant resource. But I'd like to turn to Jihan for a moment to touch on the role that the creative economy plays in terms of providing an injection of not just obviously vibrant creativity, entertainment and events that we all enjoy, but also capital into the economy. And so I'm interested in your perspective on the role that the creative economy can play in Saint Kitts and Nevis in providing that boost from a capital perspective, and how the diaspora could potentially partner with creative entrepreneurs to make that injection into the economy.
Thank you so much, Davinia. Well, first of all, happy Independence celebrations and happy National Day to all of us. It is one of the things that I think people don't, when we think of creative economy, we tend to think of entertainment, as you say, but there is a lot of wealth generation capacity surrounding the creative economy. I was just reading a report from an association called the Alliance for Independent Authors that is based in the US, but they have members all over the world. And they were saying that the average earners for independent authors is now on average US $12,000 to up to $82,000 for authors. Now, what's stopping anybody in the room from becoming an author? So these are the things that we have to recognize and encourage our people to become authors, become photographers, become videographers, become creative expressionists, so that because the outputs from these sorts of exploits, there is wealth generation associated with it. You did mention earlier that land is finite. So some of us may not have, the inheritance or the even remittances and things like that. So what we have to use is what we have. We all have stories, we all have skills, we all have talents, or we all know people who have skills and talents that we could tap into to create products for ourselves. And I think that's something that we need to push more in Saint Kitts and Nevis, so people can understand that we have everything we need without the land, without the remittances, without the property and the inheritance. We can become creators rather than consumers. And I think that is a message that I would love to hear our people present more. Rather than buying music, why can't you make your own music? There are so many tools now. When we get into the AI realm, there are lots of tools, but in terms of creating, you becoming an artist, photographer, videographer, and think about it also from the perspective of us creating, develop national identity. There are so many stories, so many things. It was about 5 years ago. For the first time in my life, I met a Christina survivor 5 years ago. And I've been living here practically all my life. But there are about a handful of books written on Christina disaster. What is going to happen when 20 years from now, most of these survivors may have passed? Where are those stories? There is a proverb that says, when an elder dies, a library burns to the ground. Who is collecting our stories? And why can't we make money off of that? So this is the role that I think the creative economy is going to play in wealth creation, because it's accessible to everybody. You don't need the land necessarily, but there are things you could do to start. And of course, the Intellectual Property Office, which I'm pleased to head, our responsibility is ensuring that there is a legislative framework in place to ensure that persons can actually benefit from the creation in that regard.
No? Okay. So many gems you dropped. I mean, it was such a visceral thought to think of, when an elder passes away, a library burns to the ground. We have a book club curator in the audience. We were at book club on Saturday, and we were talking about the very subject of independence and, what happens to diasporans when they leave and then return back. That story centered Saint Kitts specifically. It's called The State of Independence by Carol Phillips. For anybody that is a bookworm, it's brilliant. But when you talked about books, I know that you were an author, I'm an author as well. And lots of us, when we are writing books, or when we are pursuing creative endeavors, we have this belief, and I'm sure there are other creatives in the audience that can attest to this. You feel that it is in some way vulgar, perhaps, to monetize your passion, that, if you are an artist, if you are a creator. The outfit that I'm wearing today actually was designed by a local international designer, Judith Rawlins at Sugar Apple, who is fantastic, and of course she sells her creations. We need to think of the creations and the outputs coming out of Saint Kitts and Nevis, whether it is through music, film, dance, fashion, as on a par with Gucci or Versace or some of the other, the filmmakers and the brilliant, leather luxury goods designers, all of these sorts of things. We need to invest and not think that we're doing it almost as a kind of, I'm just going to patronize that local, artist because we're doing them a favor. And so my question to you, Jihan, is for people from the diaspora who aren't necessarily moving back here, although it would be great if more people would move back, so I've got more friends, how do we get them to kind of push through that pain barrier psychologically that might have them believe there isn't a place for me back home anymore, so I can send a barrel and I can send money to family members perhaps to support them in what they're doing, but I don't really know how to partner with local creatives, and I would like to. What advice would you have for them?
So here's a free, what would I call it, an investment opportunity, or something that someone could do to generate money. I think we need to bring creatives and the investors in the room.
Yeah.
If there is I've had visions of an online platform where people can actually see what their exploits are, what they need. Sometimes people don't need just money. Mm-hmm. People need network connections, especially for our people in the diaspora. Imagine you as someone who is an author teaching children about financial literacy, and there is a teacher in Germany from Saint Kitts and Nevis. Why can't there be some bringing together of the minds where your book could be shown as an exhibit, taught, or even just purchased as a gift for students in Germany? These are the kind of connections that I think we need to bring together. I know, for example, the Department of the Creative Economy, they have a database of creatives. They encourage people to register. They send information religiously about opportunities and things of that nature. But what if we could get some more investors connecting with those persons and people stating what their needs are and what they could offer? Sort of like a creative marketplace. I think that's something that we need, because even this week I saw a makeup artist, asking for assistance, just support. And I think there are so many opportunities that exist within our diaspora that we should try very hard to make those sorts of connections.
I love that. I've got another question for Trevor, but before we get there, I was thinking the other day, I heard this anecdote about the Anguilla national government website URL. And when I talked about the creative economy and some of the ways that we might monetize our creative endeavors, and you said, it's bigger than just entertainment and events. There are so many other ways, so many other things that the creative economy encompasses. Can you share with us what some of those things look like? And the reason that thought has come to mind is that the anecdote that someone shared was about, and I think it might have been Rodney that shared it, it was basically, Anguilla's national government website is .ai, ours is .kn. I think in the UK, I guess it's .gov.uk or whatever. But if you imagine the explosion in AI recently, how they've been able to, they're almost accidental millionaires or billionaires purely on the basis of that .ai extension at the end of their website. What do we have? What do we have that we can be equivalent to Anguilla that have basically unwittingly stumbled across this gold mine that will potentially generate billions of dollars in revenue for them?
Right. So Anguilla is lucky. I don't know if we'll be as lucky with an AI. They're lucky because they are AI.
Exactly.
So I don't know if that would relate to us, but I keep thinking that there is an opportunity, something that happens every year that we get so excited for, but we don't monetize. It starts with an M. Know what that is? Mango.
Mango.
We have a mango festival every year. And earlier this year, I looked at an exhibit from India who has now moved to protect their mango as a protected agricultural product. There is something in intellectual property called a geographical indication, or a GI. And it's basically a label that you put on a good, and usually agricultural or spirits or something of that nature. But it's a label that you put on a product that has been certified as unique solely because it has been grown or produced in a particular geographical location. John, I don't know if we have the image. There was an image that I submitted to John 5 minutes before today to this presentation. We could see if we have it. But the label goes on products, and essentially these products have been certified as unique to a particular geographical location where it is grown or produced. So the image is over on that screen. But let me use this screen that I could see better. So an example of the GI would be that Jamaica Blue Mountain coffee logo that you see. Yes, thank you. So this is an example of a GI. And you would see on both of these coffee products, there is this logo. This logo would mean, seeing this logo would mean that this is certified Blue Mountain coffee. This would mean that this coffee can earn up to 40 to 80% more than other coffees sold in Jamaica. We have in Antigua and Barbuda honey. They've moved to protect theirs. Grenada is moving to protect their nutmeg. Trinidad and Tobago has completed their protection for steel pan. Saint Kitts and Nevis, cricket. Not that we're protecting crickets, but there hasn't been any conclusive movement in Saint Kitts and Nevis to protect any sorts of our output, but we have a mango festival. So what if we could move together to create mango products? What if when everybody comes to Saint Kitts and Nevis, they ask for mango what? What we could do with mango? Mango rum? Mango jam. Let's call it mango jam. So let's say we create a mango jam, and we have groups of people who pick Nevis mangoes, produce mango jam in Nevis, and they sell it, and there is the creation of something like this, a GI, run by a regulatory board that says, okay, Davinia's group who does mango jam, I've come to your organization, I've seen how you produce, I know that you use Nevis mangoes, so I'm going to allow you to put this logo on your mango jam. That mango jam would be able to collect 40% more, simply because it has gone through the certification of a regulatory body that is overseen by the intellectual property framework. So these are opportunities that we have. I want to challenge you all a bit even more. When you come to Saint Kitts and Nevis, what do you go home with as a Saint Kitts and Nevis product? T-shirts? Bread? Think about it, there's not much products for us that are produced here from locally produced energy, effort, raw material that we can certify is made, that is certified, made in Saint Kitts. We are resting on the efforts of great entrepreneurs like Anastasia Elliott and Winnie L. Pereira, who are doing these things naturally. But then where is the national movement towards products that Saint Kitts and Nevis could be known for? So that is the kind of thing that intellectual property protects. And I used you as an example of somebody who just picks mangoes and does mango jams. There are so many opportunities, and more importantly, there are so many successful examples of it being done right here in the Caribbean. So we just have to identify what are the products in Saint Kitts that are so special to us, that because it comes from Saint Kitts and Nevis, special. Maybe we could do bread. Who knows? It doesn't matter how trivial it sounds. If it's bread, it's bread. Mm-hmm. So we just have to make sure that we understand that under our intellectual property laws, these opportunities are available for regular people to generate wealth.
I love that. I particularly love, I loved everything that you said, but I think coming back to your point about that regular people, I'm very interested in how we can democratize access to things, how we can all be part of the conversation, how we can all be part of the solution. And Trevor and Calvin, I'd like to bring you in on this topic, because when we are thinking about wealth creating opportunities for the average man, the average woman, lots of us, as we touched on, have a mindset that it's not for us. If you live in the diaspora, you might think, investing is for other people. It's for people that are already rich, who've had an inheritance, that work in certain industries. And as a result, we screen ourselves out of the conversation, and we're effectively leaving money on the table. When, to your point, Calvin, when you gave that example of the compound effect over the long term, 2 decades, 3 decades feels like a long time away, but we all want to grow older, and we all want to grow older and be able to live in comfort. So, when I talk to people about their pension planning, that's the very premise upon which I share with them the different ways that they might build wealth over the long term. So Trevor, for people that are thinking about investing, through the ECSE, what would you say to those people that are like, well, that's not for me, that's for people that are rich?
Yeah, that is, Davinia, one of the biggest problems we face in trying to expand the share ownership across the population. Too many people think there are restrictions to investing. It's not for me, I don't have enough money, I'm too old, all sorts of excuses. You're never too old, you never have too little money. You can start investing with whatever you have. The smallest amount of shares you can buy on the exchange is 20 shares. Yeah? Mm-hmm. And if some of the local companies have share prices $1.50, $1.75, so you could get started investing with $30. Mm-hmm. So there's always an opportunity for everybody to get involved. Visit one of your local broker dealers, tell them what you have, tell them what your needs are. It's never too old, you're never too old either. It's never too late. What will change is the strategy that you use, how you invest, what you invest in. You wouldn't be, if you're already at my age, you wouldn't be invested for the long run. You'd invested for a more shorter time frame, so you might want to put your investments in more sort of fixed income things that your capital is protected and you could get an income, almost from the word go. If you're young, like my friend here, Jihan, then you could think about more longer-term investing. You have a longer horizon, and you could benefit from some of the compounding that Calvin spoke about in his presentation.
you in on this topic because I know, given the work that you have done around financial wellness, and you're quite right to expand the conversation outside of just financial literacy, which is of course one strand of financial wellness, but it's not the whole conversation. What do you see as best practice in this area that we could adopt and implement as a diaspora community, but also people that are living in Saint Kitts and Nevis, to try and quite quickly get ourselves to a stage where we are on a par globally with what's happening, and that we can avail ourselves of the resources that exist, the books, other, online materials? What would you, for someone that's struggling and doesn't know where to begin, what would you recommend?
Yeah, I think a couple of things. First, came in today, I went to the vendor sector, and I was very deliberate in asking just a general question. Do you have a website? Do you have a business card? Are you thinking about expanding internationally, and so forth? I think where we see individuals have what we call a barrier is, I don't know where to start. And the starting is the basic of just asking the questions. I think that's the first thing. We have a number of avenues here, as you said, in terms of entrepreneurs who wish to do certain things. In my line of work, it's as a special envoy, I constantly engage with global investors who wish to participate and support our entrepreneurs. And I think that's where we don't have that, what I call the connective tissue, where individuals may wish to start at a small business level, but we stay there. And we have the product, we think we want to get into entrepreneurship, we have the project, but we don't go through the aspect of, well, I want to expand beyond, or to your point where, well, I don't have the capital or the money to invest. There is money in the global economy, lots and lots of money, but you have to make that first connection. There's this context around ESG, environmental social governance, and many large corporations have earmarked billions of dollars, and they're looking for sustainability. How can I invest in sustainability? I have conversations with individuals and corporations, but it's really finding that ecosystem of where do I start? My dear colleague, if I may, Peter Kwak, who I met in Kosovo, in regards to some of the diaspora conversation, in dialogue with Peter. Peter's network is vast, and I'm hoping to leverage Peter to make some introduction here in St. Kitts with individuals who wish to expand. Because I think sometimes we forget, or we feel we're in this small country and no one is. No, St. Kitts is a brand, and I can clearly tell you we have a very powerful brand, and there are people looking to invest, whether it's in technology. I have a classmate of mine in AI. I met an individual, and they're looking to expand into how do I develop or even bring revenue to an area in digitization, or a dentistry company who wish to explore certain things in St. Kitts. So the barriers we think exist don't really exist in reality. It starts with the conversation. It starts with, for example, we have our Saint Kitts Nevis Investment Promotion Agency. That's an avenue, I think, to your point, we feel it's only certain individuals who can. Why don't we have our locals or folks from the diaspora who wish to invest? I'm sure you will eventually touch on, as you said, the citizenship by investment, and I'm happy to talk about it. I think this has been hidden, and I'm a very transparent individual. As I said, I'm Wall Street, which means we are very aggressive, but it's something you have to be aware of. Know what is available to you. And I think where we limit ourselves because we think, well, this isn't for me, this is for them. There's no them. I can tell you that. There's no them. It's all of us in it together. And you have to ask the question, you have to be bold. You know, we have entrepreneurs here who've gone global and do certain things. But the aspect of finding and thinking beyond the limitation that we may think, well, I'm just going to do it, and I'm going to do it at this small scale. No, but you must ask. That is the first thing. If you don't ask, you won't know. It's not rocket science. There's no difficult formula. It's asking. The government has done an amazing job in providing the avenues and putting them out there to say, you know, we are doing this. But you must ask. If you don't ask, you will never be part of the conversation. I'm guarantee you that if you do not have that conversation, you are not part of the conversation. So that's the first thing I would definitely indicate. And then go beyond your sort of inner component. Think global. There's no limitation anymore. We're at the global level. So if an individual is exploring, as Jihan said, in terms of some of our products, you know, I was thinking bread because I leave and I go with bread. Whatever that is, those are interesting conversations, you know, we have. And individuals are out there looking. As I said, there's a spirit of money. Money's looking. It's always looking. Where can I invest into? But you have to actually send those signals out in order for it to connect with you.
I love that. I like the idea of the spirit of money. And it's looking for us as well. So you touched on something that I was about to come on to, which is citizenship by investment. And I think as a diaspora community, I think even as a local community, there are a number of misconceptions, perhaps. There are some myths, some truths. I think for people that are not close enough to the activities of citizenship by investment, it can feel that it has been shrouded in secrecy, shrouded in mystery, and so the only outputs from CBI are bad news. How, the brand, as you say, Saint Kitts and Nevis has an incredibly strong brand. And actually, we are all brilliant ambassadors. We're all walking brand ambassadors for the Federation. I know, being from the UK, representing Birmingham and London, when you see that flag anywhere, you feel so proud to see it outside of, if you're watching, some kind of official royal ceremony, an official government ceremony, UN, anywhere you see that flag in the world, you feel this immense sense of pride. And so anything that could bring that flag and bring our brand into disrepute really makes us all cringe and feel upset about it. And I think the Citizenship by Investment programme has unfortunately been part of that in recent years. What would you say as the new chair for Citizenship by Investment, I suppose, in the first instance, just explaining to people what that is, and then also sharing how it's contributing positively and meaningfully to the Saint Kitts and Nevis economy, I think would be really useful for us here today.
And thanks for asking. So I would go through the basic. So Citizenship by Investment, it's a program that Saint Kitts and Nevis offers to individuals who wish to become a citizen of Saint Kitts and Nevis by making a significant financial contribution. As you reference in terms of what the outputs are, where we are, the Marriott, this is a product of that level of significant investment. The Park Hyatts that a few of us may have had dinners in different areas, those are products. In Nevis, the Belmont Gardens, that we had the wonderful dancing and scrumptious, those are products. And I'll share the benefit, and you're absolutely right. It's been a fast 6 weeks of learning and hearing all the unique things. I think what gives me the confidence is because I still sit in the umbrella of Special Envoy for Investment and Development, and I can tell you, as you reference, the flag on the international arena brings pride. It brings a level of comfort. It echoes stability. The program has a significant benefit to us as citizens here in Saint Kitts and Nevis and to our diaspora. It creates jobs. You can imagine the amount of jobs that it creates here in where we're sitting, whether it's from the hostess, the cooks, the attendants, many opportunities across the street, or Royal Saint Kitts Plaza as well. And it's very important to understand, and this is very critical, and there's an element that we're not touching, our economic citizens. The diaspora is going to grow. I won't steal the thunder. I think at some point Michael Martin will share a little bit on the economic citizens. But that is an element that we have to take into consideration. These are now opportunities that exist. And I think it's important that we understand the bench strength of preserving and protecting the brand. I think Jihan referenced statistics. Well, let me give you statistics. 70% of the GDP of Saint Kitts and Nevis comes from the Citizenship by investment program. I'll repeat that. It's not 10%, it's not 15%, 70. So could you imagine if this program goes away? 70%. I pause because I don't think, as you said, everyone understands the impact and implication of what this program that we offer. And it is important, and I can tell you, there are individuals in the world. I've had the luxury of being in private bank, high net worth individuals who had what we call unlimited money. But based on their situation, geographic location, they perhaps maybe in a country, for whatever reason, they don't have the opportunities to travel from a mobility perspective, movement of wealth. And we offer that political stability and the climate. We offer this. So there are people looking to expand and really desire to be part of this journey. And it is important that we have it. Let us not take it for granted. I assure you, there are others who will do and really want to be part of this. So, I won't go too far because, I'm still in the building phase of it. But what I would say, and, I've shared this with a number of the individuals who are very close to it. There's really six principles as I take on this new chairship. Transparency, and I just exhibited that. Transparency of this program that we have. The second piece is around communication. We have to talk about it. We have to share that we offer this wonderful program that people around the world look for. The other aspect, which is very critical, as you referenced, there have been some negativity, is good governance, and that's what we wish to do. We should demonstrate good governance. We want to ensure the right individuals become part of this, because it's not just for us. As my colleagues in the different parts of the world, those in the US, those in the UK, and those in Canada, we also want to make sure that you can feel confident as we offer this. And then the other aspect really is around transformation, and that is the journey that I'm on in transforming this program to ensure that it is at the level of excellence, is at the level of world-class customer service, professionalism is key. And then we want to be a global leader. Small Saint Kitts, I think, and Psych, I may misquote you, we're small, but we're tall. Huge. So we have to be that global leader. And the last but not least, sixth of the principle is sustainability. As I said at the beginning, 70%. We are in a journey of diversification, but at this point in time, it's 70 until we get there. So it's sustainability of this that is going to help. And then to your point around this conversation, why don't our diaspora leverage it? We have what we call penetration, individuals who are willing to support us, who have become economic citizens, and perhaps may wish to invest beyond just being a citizen. That is my goal. I wish to tap into and provide that level of revenue and continual growth and expansion that this program offers.
Thank you for that. So before we get to final remarks, I mean, one of the thoughts that immediately sprung to mind, and you and I have had this conversation, Calvin, was around, when you think about Brexit in the UK and the fact that, the EU was responsible for investing huge sums of money, billions of dollars, on an annual basis into the UK. It supported regional development projects, community projects, childcare services, often for those people at the lower end of the income spectrum. And I think it was only when, on the basis of a campaign that promoted all of the negative aspects of the UK's participation in the EU, and on that basis, the vast majority, of course, voted to leave the EU, and subsequently realised that all of the community centres that they perhaps depended upon, the grants that they were receiving, were being financed by the EU, that they realised that actually we were heavily dependent in lots of areas, lots of parts of the UK. Wales is one such area in which we were receiving huge amounts of money, and suddenly that seam of income dried up. So to Calvin's point, it is important that we recognise the contribution that the Citizenship by Investment Unit plays in the Saint Kitts and Nevis economy, and that there are open lines of communication so that people can have that dialogue. They can challenge respectfully about what's happening, but also feel that they are part of the conversation, whilst being mindful of the significant contribution being played and how we can amplify that for the betterment of Saint Kitts and Nevis citizens. But I think, Trevor, just finally to come to you on remittances and thinking about the different sources of economic contribution in Saint Kitts and Nevis. Obviously, remittances, Mr. Vaughan highlighted that it's millions of dollars in some years that come from remittances. And so what can people, and I guess, Jihan, we can bring you into this conversation as well, when we're thinking about that contribution. Remittances, Trevor, is a big part of it. And then, Jihan, perhaps you can just share for us that the contribution doesn't necessarily have to be financial. There are other ways as well that we can contribute to creatively.
Yes, remittances is big globally. The World Bank estimates like some $800 million was remitted, mostly from the US into various parts of the world. The portion of that came to some of the bigger countries in big diasporas, like India. India alone was 125 billion, going into India. The share of that came to the Caribbean was in the order of 56 or so million US dollars that came to the Caribbean. Saint Kitts and remittances account for, in some places, over 10%. In a few cases, it accounted for up to 1/3 of GDP. In most, about 80 countries of the world, it accounts for more than 3% of GDP. In the case of Saint Kitts, however, our inward remittances is just about 2.5% of GDP. So it's relatively small in the context. If Calvin is bringing 70%, then that doesn't leave, so it's relatively small in the context of Saint Kitts as a proportion of GDP. However, it amounts to something like, in 2023, 56 or so million dollars. Sorry, about 35 million EC dollars, which is significant, which is big. And for those who benefit from the remittances, it is invaluable. A large amount of it go really to fund families back here, poverty alleviation, things like food, clothing, that sort of thing. So 75% of remittances generally go towards those sorts of poverty alleviation measures. Only 25% also is saved or invested. In St. Kitts, I think most of that 25%, if we use the same as yardstick, goes mainly into savings accounts, because we don't see that coming into the securities markets. So the question is, how do we translate that from just going into savings or moving away from just merely poverty alleviation? But how could that, what you, the diaspora, sends back to the country, how could we get more of that coming into the capital markets to create wealth? And that is the conversation I think we need to have. When we look at the contribution to GDP, as I said, it is not significant, but it's a lot of money. Anything 30 million, it's a lot. Just to say, Saint Kitts is one of the countries that is actually a net remitter and not a net recipient. The gap between the incoming remittances and the outgoing remittances is about $5 million or so. So we are remitting actually $5 million more than we are receiving. So, I mean, I guess that reflects our economy. You know, we have lots of foreign workers coming into Saint Kitts and remitting their part of their income back to their home countries, etc. Not that you in the diaspora are not sending back, money. You're sending a lot. Like I said, 35 billion is a lot of money. But we are sending out more than we are actually receiving. So how do we change that equation? How do we get more being invested here back in Saint Kitts and Nevis? Because some of that is outgoing. Maybe actual Kittians and divisions living here in Saint Kitts and Nevis who may be sending our monies to other parts for various reasons. So how do we tap into that and retain more of that here in our own economy, trying to build our economy and creating wealth? Again, I recommend that we look towards the securities markets that we operate and visit your broker-dealer. They could tell you about the opportunities that exist.
Brilliant. Thank you, Trevor. Final remarks from you, Jihan?
Well, thank you so much for the invitation. Of course, it's always a pleasure to share about intellectual property. I too felt a bit funny with my statistics after Calvin dropped his 70%. But in 2010, the World Intellectual Property Organization did a study on the economic contribution of the creative industry in the OECS, and specifically found that 6.6% of our GDP is tied to creative industry. It was one of the higher ones in the OECS region, and that was 2010. And it was trending upwards from since 2000. So I could imagine 14 years later, it could still be higher. What this says to me is that we have so many assets that we're not taking care of and we're not paying attention. One of our participants earlier was sharing with me that even though we produce a lot of music, it's not coming back to producers. Some for very small logistical reasons that can be sorted out, others for big policy reasons that the government and others who use music would have to address. But the fact is that our people are creative and there are so many opportunities for them to create wealth. And it's important that they understand the different ways that they can generate wealth. So it's not just about, for example, a musician singing on a show and getting a performance fee. What about royalty? What about other avenues? What about selling merchandise? There are other things that people can do in the creative industries to generate wealth for themselves. But sometimes I think, we're so happy to perform on a stage that we lose sight of the opportunities that are available to us. And I'm very happy to see the large turnout that happened a few weeks ago at the Creative Power Arts Convention, where so many persons learned the business about event planning, music, entrepreneurship, so that they could understand where these other avenues are to create wealth. So I just want us to open our eyes to our assets and find more ways that for us to benefit from them. If you notice that everybody who travels wants bread, perhaps there's something in the bread that we need to paying attention.
I love the sound of the bread. Jihan, thank you so much. I think that's all we've got time for. I'm wondering whether we can squeeze in a couple of questions. But I think, from my perspective, in summarizing everything we've covered here today, but I think there are two things. Number one, we are our biggest asset by far. As a federation, as a diaspora, as Kittitians and Nevisians, we need to recognize ourselves as ambassadors of the brand of Saint Kitts and Nevis, and that we are our biggest asset by far. We must never lose sight of that. But also opportunity. There are immense opportunities in the federation that we can unlock together, and so I look forward to seeing how that manifests itself after today. So thank you so much, everyone. Do we have time for questions? Not even one?
Thank you very much. The time is fast spent. You would have had an hour and 20 minutes, and we have another panel to go. And I think it was timely information. Thank you very much. And this is what we are going to do. I want you to take this email address, ridu@gov.kn. And all questions that you have that are pertinent to this session and the one that went before, please send them to us. We will send them out to the panel. And what we are going to do within a month is to produce a commemorative conference magazine. And within that magazine, we will put those questions and the responses that we got. Because the time is fast spent, and we will have to, ridu.gov.kn. You take that email address, utilize it, send us your questions, and we will be happy to get the responses from the panels, and we will be able to produce that for you for timely. I want to now call on His Excellency Mr. Samuel Berridge, our High Commissioner to Canada, to give thanks to our panelists, our moderator, with some tokens of our appreciation. And so, as he comes, with the photographers, are they ready? And we begin with our moderator, Ms. Tomlinson. Thank you very much for an excellent job, both as presenter and moderator. So thank you very much. Yes. I want to thank also Ambassador His Excellency, Mr. Calvin St. Juste. Thank you very much. One second. Un momento. The great lady who understands intellectual property and how it makes money. And so, yes, it's all about the money. Show me the money. Thank you very much, Mrs. Jihan Williams-Knight. And last but by no means least, the man who helps us to invest at the stock exchange. Mr. Trevor Blake, thank you very, very much. As I wrap up this session, I want to make special mention of our sponsors for this celebration. Our sponsors are, first, the government of Saint Kitts and Nevis. We can put our hands together. Rock and Dirt Limited. The Citizenship by Investment Unit. So you get another round of applause, my brother. The Embassy of the Republic of China on Taiwan. Invest Saint Kitts, or we also call them Skipper. CS Global Partners out of the United Kingdom, Adtalem Global Education, who was represented this morning by Dr. Sweeney, the Saint Kitts and Nevis and Gwilla National Bank Group of Companies, Trident Trust. Yeah, that's another sponsor. Let's put our hands together for them. The Cable, that's another sponsor. And our final sponsor, Windsor University School of Medicine. We are also happy to have some contributors to our conference. These include the Nevis Island Administration, the Development Bank of Saint Kitts and Nevis, the Urban Development Corporation, Daniel Residences, who would have hosted us on Saturday evening, Carambola Beach Club, who hosted us yesterday to the opening, and Island Purified Water. And then finally, we have some persons who partnered with us. Their work helped us to get this going, and these include Invest Nevis, otherwise known as NIPA, the University of the West Indies TV Global, South Beach Promo, and when you wear those shirts on Wednesday we'll be wearing the shirts that are in your bags. They were made by South Beach Promo. Cayenne Jet, which is a flight-based operation here at the Robert Llewellyn Bratcher International Airport. The Saint Kitts Tourism Authority, and last but by no means least, the Global Diaspora Confederation. These are our partners in having this conference. We will have a brief 10-minute break where you can stretch your legs, go and get some refreshments, and we come straight back for the final session.